Okay, so Forspoken. We're gonna make this a little bit of a short one because, well, I haven't got a huge amount of thoughts on this, but more than anything, I think it deserves something made out of it. Because Forspoken was basically shot at the starting line. It didn't really get much of a chance in the public eye. It had a substantial amount of advertising made for it, but because of that one really bad trailer put out by Squeenix, with the terrible voice acting and the generally bad dialogue, nobody gave it a shot, and I think that's a bit of a pity. So what I'm intending to do with this video is a bit more of a critical view on it and not just the internet's reactionary, this game looks like shit, this game plays like shit, this game has terrible voice acting, because the entire thing is so much more nuanced. So we'll start from the beginning and we'll start with where this all started. Is the voice acting shit? No, it is not, but that comes with an asterisk. The voice acting is not shit. I think that the main character and her partner, the buddy cop drama they have fine voice acting. There's nothing wrong with it. Everybody else, however, not so much. It's not so much that the characters and the side characters have bad voice acting, it's just that compared to Cuff and compared to Frey, they aren't great, and it's not helped by the fact that whilst their voice acting isn't great, their models and their designs are absolutely horrific. Whilst Frey and Cuff have, well, to a lesser extent Cuff, considering how it is just a cuff on her arm, that Frey has a substantial amount of effort gone into her model. It is clear that they went to a lot of effort to make sure Frey looked good. Everyone else, though, has that soft, clunky, unfinished feel to them that really takes you out of the experience. Not to mention that in cutscenes in the main hub city are stunted, slow, and way too animated. It doesn't vibe, it doesn't gel very well together, which is unfortunate. But more than that, the voice acting is fine, and the dialogue is also fine to an extent, but Frey is one of two sides. Frey is a fun, enjoyable character. She really acts the part of somebody who just got given powers and is having a blast with them. Like, you can really put yourself into her shoes and see, wow, I could really just have a blast with this. I can run everywhere. I could just shoot things out of my hand. I can levitate shit. Yeah, sometimes it comes off as cringy, like in that scene where she goes, Did I just do that? Did I just move that with my mind? Like, yes, that is cringy as hell. That is super cringy. But so what? Like, it's a bit cringy here and there, but that's an acquired taste. Some people love the cringe. But more than anything, half the time she's just acting like somebody who's just gotten powers for the first time and is having a blast with them. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. And I think some people would take it the other way around and see that as being cringe and see that as a negative. However, I'm not. But the problem with Frey is more just the fact that her as a character she doesn't know when to shut up. At the start of the game, when she's in the middle of getting beaten up and she's still flapping her mouth. She's still being just a piece of shit. Frey, shut up. You are going to get stabbed here if you don't shut up. And she will keep on talking. And it's like, Frey, please, I beg of you, just be quiet for uno momento, please. I just want you to be quiet and just take it one step at a time. So, voice acting is fine, dialogue is okay, and the character is 50-50. The story, it's not great. It's not ideal. There are a couple good story beats towards the second half of the game, but the game does not match itself very well to a story of that level. You don't want to be... When you're running around the overworld, you're parkouring everywhere with no spring in your step, no worry at all what you need to do, and slinging spells left, right, and center. You don't want to get locked into a slow, tedious cutscene or walking from point A to point B and getting exposited all over. The game has a really nasty habit of letting you go out into the world and just have a blast and explore and see what you can find, and then grinding you to a slow, sluggish halt just so you can get talked to. Not to mention how it is slowed even further down by the fact that every time you take a step, You are going into a cutscene. Oh, you've just entered Sepal and you've made your way forward. Oh, cutscene as somebody comes up to you. Oh, you need to load a small area. Cutscene. Oh, you're going into cutscene. Cutscene, cutscene, cutscene. That slows it down even more than just everybody talking to you. It's infuriating. It's annoying to go from a pretty solid combat system and running around the overworld to just walking everywhere. I don't want to be walking. I want to be running around the overworld and exploring and hitting things and casting magic. Which leads me on to what the actual combat is. It is so much fun, and this is what really upsets me about how no one gave it the time of day. It feels amazing to run around the overworld and start slinging spells back and forth, back and forth. It takes some time to get used to as you flick from your support spells to your aggressive spells and experimenting and changing from one element to another element and seeing what combos the best. On top of that, on top of comboing and trying to see what spells and what elements affect different enemies more and in more positive ways, yes, that takes a bit of time to get used to, but that is fun. That's part of the charm. That's part of figuring out how to do it. And it lets you figure it out. It gives, unlike the demo, which hid so many things from you, the main game tells you everything you need to and explains it thoroughly, but it leaves just enough out so that you can experiment and see what you like about it. It tells you how to cast your spells. It explains the best way to combo them, and it explains what you can do to loop them together. What it doesn't tell you is the best combinations or how you're to use them. It's really well done, and if I'm going to be completely honest, that is the system that kept me coming back to Forspoken. Forspoken is a game of two sides. On one side, there is the really solid gameplay. There is the solid gameplay loop of just running across the overworld, dodging left, right, and center, bouncing between trees and trying to see how you can skim across the world in as fast a time as possible without stopping. And slinging spells back and forth, battling monsters, and just having a blast. But on the other hand, it is slow, it is sluggish, it forces you to just listen to mindless storytelling which doesn't really affect anything in particular and doesn't have the character chops to back it up. That's its main issue in the story department. The story relies on having really good characters that you can attach yourselves to and be emotionally invested in. But the game is trying to be a blockbuster without the blockbuster writing. Its story is interesting in how Frey gets tied into this magical world, and it's interesting with the twist of her relation to the cuff. But everything in between that, with the main Tantas and the characters she meets and the councilmen and women she meets, they're all so terribly written, terribly voice acted, and just not enjoyable to listen to. It's unfortunate because I think if those parts of the game got ironed out and got made more enjoyable, if those parts were given the same love and attention as the combat did, I think this game would easily be a shoo-in for Game of the Year. But unfortunately, with its really poor reception in terms of its trailer being released and just the general slogfest that the entire internet gave it, no way this would be able to make that. No way it would be able to make the cut. But with that in mind, whilst I cannot recommend Forspoken for the reasons I've described, I loved the game for the combat, but plenty of people don't have the money to spend on just the combat. Some people want to have good gameplay with good story, and I can completely understand that. That's completely fair. But if the people at Squeenix somehow got it in their head that people wanted more Forspoken, which I do, I think they'd be able to knock it out of the ballpark. Perfect the small niggles that the combat has, make the story better, make the models for the characters better, more engaging, more enjoyable. I think if the theoretical Forspoken 2, I think if that existed, that could be 100% what this game needed. Because what Forspoken is missing can be added in a sequel. And that's all I have left to say on the matter. It's, like I say, it's unfortunate, and I really enjoyed Forspoken, but unfortunately, it failed right at the starting gate, and it suffers from arguably a lack of polish and a lack of love in certain parts of the game, which again is unfortunate. So yeah, basically, don't buy the game unless you really enjoyed the demo, because the demo was all combat, and if you enjoy the combat, well, this game's for you. But in the meantime, yeah, I hope if you played Forspoken, or if you did play Forspoken, please leave in the comments below why you liked or why you didn't like it, and I hope to see you in the next video. Yeah, keep it easy.